You get to a place where you just have to stop caring about like what people think, especially if you want to help, especially if you want to try to make things better. You really got to focus on just doing the right thing. And I think in the in the process of trying to become a beneficial man, I'm learning that more and more and more and more. Like some things, it's not your fault, but it is your problem. It may not be your fault at all, and I think that's kind of the weight of being a man and being a God-fearing man and being a beneficial man. There are a lot of things that are in the world that are not our fault or not your fault, but you have to deal with them, and they become your problem. And the Most High will bring those things to you, either through people or to you directly, to say like, all right, I need you to address this. I need you to do this. And I think it's very challenging for people to have to do that work, but it needs to be done. With that being said, I'm doing a quick response. I'm doing a quick response to a response video. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm gonna edit this video. I'm just gonna talk, and maybe I'll do a longer response to the original video. But I'm responding to content creator Themis and Thoth. What is masculinity? Me learning, apparently. That's the title. It's a live stream that he did yesterday, actually, and me and my family watched it. And to be honest, it's really hard sometimes to watch his content because it's just embarrassing, and it's not necessarily his fault. I don't think it's his fault because he's covering content that makes us as black men look dumb, and just sound terrible. And again, it's not his fault. Like he gets his content. I don't know who sends it to him. I don't know what their intention is in sending it to him, but he ends up covering it, right? And it just sucks because for me, just a little side nugget. It's just for me, yeah, I would appreciate there was more discussion of positive things, but I get it. Like I just said, it's not his fault. It's not necessarily my fault, but it's a problem and it needs to be addressed. It is what it is. And so he was responding or watching a video, and I only made it through like the end of the live stream. The live stream itself I'm sure was probably long. They probably stayed on a lot longer than when we finished watching it, but made it to the end of this video. The video that he was responding to or watching was entitled "Exploring Masculinity: A Heart-to-Heart with Men on What It Means to Be a Man," and this was done by the channel is The Table with AO, or The Table with Anthony O'Neill. And so I watch Anthony O'Neill's content. Some stuff I like, some stuff I don't like, but this just happened to be the topic for that evening. And it's interesting because I don't know everybody on the panel. One of them I know personally in regards to like I guess acquaintance would be good because we went to school together, we went to college together. So he was one of the people on the panel, but the whole concept is they're a panel of men from different walks of life. I'll say that because I think some are pastors, some are Christians, some may not be believers, whatever. But there's a panel of men, I think 9 men, discussing, they're supposed to be discussing exploring masculinity, what it means to be a man. That's what they're supposed to be talking about, right? And I'm not sure if there was actually a set of questions that they were supposed to be talking about, but it kind of, I feel like it went off the rails at one point and people were kind of just talking. But anyways, I think the expectation with this video, even and from the response, is like, okay, we are hearing from men that are supposed to be Christians, that are supposed to be good men, yada yada yada, whatever, right? And you're expecting good things, and then as you watch it, it just gives mediocrity and baseness. And as I describe gray mediocrity, it's just a place of where you're not living in your vibrance, you're not living in your most beneficial self as a man. So it's, as I was sitting there honestly struggling to watch it and listen to it, I'm just like, this is all bad. There were a couple of men who said some good things, but if we had to do a percentage, it was like 2%. It was like 2% of what was shared, and it sucks. And it sucks. Like I might have to do my own like response video and going through it by point, but I'm just doing a quick video right now. It sucks because you're expecting good things, and the whole majority of it was just giving mediocrity and baseness. And a major focus in this discussion about what it means to be a man, manhood, masculinity, a major focus was on women and sex. a good portion of it was women and sex, and then money, women and sex. Was it that rock song? Oh no, but the sex, drugs, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But it gives me that same thing, like money, sex, and the way I describe it, it seems like the conversation for most men, for most black men, is just money, sex, and fitness. That's it. So like in this conversation, it's very rarely expressed a standard of godliness or being beneficial. Like there were a couple of drops of nuggets put in there about like a man is supposed to do this for the greater community, yada yada. He's supposed to take care of his family. Okay, good. We didn't go deeper into that. Should have went deeper into that. At some point, all we're just talking about is men's need to have sex once a week. If they can't have sex once a week, then they're going to like produce vile behavior. Somebody referenced priests abusing children. Like there was so much more to talk about. You know what I'm saying? There's so much more to talk about being a man, about masculinity, about what it means to be beneficial for your community, what it means to be a man in this community, what it means to be a man from God's perspective. You know, I might have to turn off my car. Like there's so much more to talk about, but we really the discussion really just focused on sex and money, you know. And it's frustrating. Honestly, the other thing that's frustrating is seeing immature and bad examples of black men, especially those who are supposed to be believers. And like, it's one thing to have discussions in public or in private, to have discussions in private when you are like trying to educate a brother of like, yo, don't say that what you're thinking is wrong and stuff like that. But when you put stuff like on a platform and then you're like proud of it and like, let's put it out and this is going to be beneficial for a lot of people, and it's like no checks and balances, that becomes an issue. I think that becomes an issue. Like it's not being constructive, I don't think. Like it may be creating a conversation for people to have, but like with the internet, what I'm finding is with those conversations, they're very often not balanced conversations. They're not balanced conversations. So like one group of people will discuss this and it's like, oh yeah, all these things were good. Like I agree with everything those men said on this panel. And then the other side of the conversation is like everything they said was terrible. There is rarely a middle ground. And I'm not just saying that for this manosphere stuff or black masculinity stuff, but I feel like that's for the internet in general. Whether it's politics, whether it's science, whether it's whatever, like there's very rarely a middle ground, and it's very polarized with a lot of situations. But anyways, like it was really frustrating seeing that, because it was a range of younger men, probably men my age, and then like older men. And again, there were only like a few nuggets in there of like good advice that didn't make men just sound terrible. And it's frustrating. Like I know personally, I guess from my own personal experience, I know that Anthony O'Neill, based off of the content that he's created, there are other men that he could have had on that panel that could have provided more constructive information that would have been helpful for the community at large, and I think for men at large. Because like a lot of the stuff that they were saying, other men say already. You know, you have your Kevin Samuels, you have I'm just going to use him as an example, but you have other people who are saying a lot of the stuff that they were already saying. Like you weren't really adding anything new to the conversation that's happening online. And it sucks even more as you're supposed to be Christians and believers, like providing not an alternative. And I have a personal thing with that in regards to alternative, but not an alternative, but like what is supposed to be the right and the more excellent and the most beneficial way. And it just didn't come out like that. Like what it came out like was, for a good chunk of it, was that men are uncontrollable, domineering, like brute beasts that women have to submit under, and I have to always have my way. Like there was very little nuance in the conversation, and it sucked. Like I don't think that's good. Like we aren't brute beasts. Like I've talked about that in previous videos. Like we're not a commodity. We're not brute beasts. We're more intricate, more comprehensive. If I want to use why does that happen? You know, when you have a thought and then it like slips your mind. Jason Wilson, like comprehensive man. Like we're more than just money, sex, and fitness. Like there's emotions there. There's standards there. There's like convictions there. There's righteousness there. There's so many more things. Good character there. Like there's so much more than just those three things, and it just, I think it's frustrating being reminded that like that seems to be the continued narrative. Like all we talk about is money, sex, and fitness. That's it. And there's so much more of this life to talk about. Even with that, there's so much more depth to money. There's more depth to sex. There's more depth to fitness. But there's so many things outside of that range of just those three things. And I get it. Maybe a lot of guys, that's a lot of men currently, that's just, those are the big things. And I understand that it's kind of like a cycle. Like, that's what we're fed often. You know, we're fed a lot of this in media. We're fed a lot of this within hip hop culture. Money, sex, and like, it may not be fitness, it may be like fashion, you know, or how your style is or whatever. Those three things are fed to men often, very, very often. But there's more. Like, I think about the thought that came to mind for me is like, in school, in high school, I remember taking a class, it was a government class, and in there, you're supposed to learn civics in regards to how to become a good citizen and then like have moral duty to your community and stuff. I don't know if they still teach that class. I don't know if that's even a discussion, but I know it should be a discussion within our community. And I know there are people who are talking about that. How can we actually show up and actually be beneficial to those around us? And it goes beyond just money, sex, and fitness. All right, this video is getting too long. Other thing is frustrating that there are so many important, like I was just saying, so many important things to talk about regarding manhood. And again, it was always boiling down to money, sex, and fitness that wasn't really discussed. But those are like the biggest things. Those were like the biggest things. And it's sad. And I'm like, I think it would be different probably if those topics came up and there were good examples or good standards put in place to deal with that. So like, for example, talking about money, it was the 50-50 conversation. There were a couple of men who talked about how they talked about it, though. I think it was not slick, but it was a kind of like a workaround of how to try to give good advice without being too direct. So there were a couple of guys who expressed that, like, you know, they went through tough times with their relationship with their ladies, and at some point it was like 30-70. The women were paying for 70% of stuff, and they can only contribute 30. Sometimes it was 100-0. The woman was paying 100 and 0, and then they were tying it into like, well, you know, I had a vision, whether it's from God or I had a vision, entrepreneurial vision, and you know, my woman supported me through that, and now it's 100. I'm doing 100, and she does 0. Okay, I understand. I get that. I think those stories, yeah, they exist, and it's true, it happens. But I think the way that it was being addressed, like, very rarely is it being communicated in ways like this needs to be the standard. Not necessarily the process of how you get there. Like, I don't think anybody should struggle. And it sucks that people do struggle. Like, it's sad that happens in life, and sadly it happens a lot in our community. I don't think anybody should struggle, and I don't think there should be a lot of pressure on women to like have to sustain men to make it to their 100 place. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the beneficial standard, in my opinion. But in a lot of these stories, it like when you tell stories like that, anecdotal stories like that, without saying like, no, this is the standard and this is what you should do, not necessarily that you should mule out your wife or mule out your woman, but like go through this process of high and lows, but it's like, no, you need to be in a position that you're doing 100%. However you can, even if you want to be majority and more, like that should be your goal. Whether that's you're currently in a relationship and you're working now to get to that place, or before you even get to a relationship, how can I be the majority? How can I be the majority? Not to control the relationship then, but to like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to provide. You're supposed to provide the baseline for both of you to build off of, you know? And yes, you work together with your lady, but like that kind of conversation is like, well, is it 50-50 or like, and then 50-50 is when they were discussing it, like ties into like, well, if we're doing 50-50 and do I get sex out of it? And like, whatever, blah, like why are we doing this? Why do we keep why do we keep settling for this? Like, why do we keep settling? Like, that's a good thing. Like, yeah, I pay some stuff. I pay 50-50 now. Give me them cheeks. What? No. And like, why are cheeks? Why are cheeks always the goal? Like, why can't? Well, okay, one thing, and I'm gonna get back to this because again, this is getting too long. One thing that was expressed, like they were describing, like what are the top 3 things that a woman needs or whatever that you're looking for in a woman. And I think beauty was part 1. Beauty was 1. Sex was 1. And I can't even remember what the third one was. But like the top 3, again, was like how she looks and sex. Oh, and then if she's saved. I'm sorry, I am laughing. It's, you're saying it was like saved, she looks good, and we can get it in. Okay, I can agree with saved. Sure. There's scripture that says, I wish I had, do I have a physical Bible? Hold on. I don't know if I do. No, I don't. I took it out. Anyways, like I said, I'm not editing this because I don't feel like it. But there is, I think it's in Proverbs. Maybe. But in general, maybe I'll look it up and put it there later or something. But the general is like a woman that, you know, like pretty much beauty is fleeting. But a woman that fears the Lord is worthy to be praised. Like that's higher than rubies. That's more excellent than anything. And so in this list of saved, beautiful, and sexual, nobody's talking about like character. Nobody's talking about like her ability to be like a good mom or like or anything else. Like it was so minimal, the expectation of what you're looking for in a woman. Does she have dreams? Is she passionate? Is she funny? Like is she funny? Does she make you laugh? But no, all you care about when you communicate these kind of things, all you care about is like, well, does she love Jesus and can I hit it? Like what? Like why do we do this? why are we settling for this? I don't get it. Like women are so much more intricate and complex, and so are you as a black man. If you are saying this, like this is all the woman needs to be, that's pretty much all you're saying about yourself too. Like these are the only things that make us compatible. Is like, oh, she's saved, I'm saved. I like getting it in, she like getting it in. We're good. She look good. I think I look okay. Like, is she having good conversations with you? Does she treat people well? Like, what are her interests? What does she want to do with her life? Like, you're trying to join lives with somebody, but you're not even caring about where they're trying to go in their you know, like in their future. Because I guess it goes to one of the other topics they talked about in regards to like money and marriage. Is like, well, she needs to submit to whatever my vision is anyway. You're supposed to be working together and fulfilling whatever God's vision is. And God gives people visions, not just men. There's a lot of responsibility given to men, and honestly believe it's supposed to be the way. That's the hierarchy of the way it's supposed to go. Like if we have the covering, it talks about that in 1 Corinthians. Like there's a father, there's a son, there's a man, and there's women. doesn't mean God doesn't tell women, doesn't give them dreams, doesn't give them a purpose, doesn't give them something to do. Like, and part of you as a man is supposed to be helping your wife do her thing, making room for her to do her thing. Because if you are a garden and if you're a gardener, if you're a husbandman and she's a garden, you're supposed to be helping her to bloom. And not to just bloom the way that you want her to bloom. It's to bloom the way that the Most High is telling you to help her to bloom. You're like, you love your wife. This is the wife that I gave you. She is a good thing. This is the wife of your youth. I'm giving you responsibility, but you need to understand, like, this is what I have for her to do. Like, think about that in regards to, like, Joseph and Mary. This is the example. This video is getting too long. This is like Joseph and Mary. Like, Joseph had a vision. Joseph and Mary both had a vision for what their marriage is supposed to look like, how things were supposed to work out. What did God do? God came in and was like, hey, listen, you about to be the virgin mom of the Savior of the world. Mary's like, all right, cool. Like, I don't know how it's going to happen. Angel says the Holy Spirit's going to come down. Nothing's impossible for God, right? She agrees. Later, God had to talk to Joseph. Joseph had visions, plans, like, all right, I understand. Like, this is what I want to do. But when the angel comes and God says, nah, this is what's happening, God's visions surpassed and like superseded his personal plan or vision, whatever it was. The same thing happens today. Like, if your wife is being called to do something that the Most High is saying, like, this is your wife's purpose in this season. You're not supposed to be like, well, I have my big vision and I'm putting my foot down. Like, no, like, we're always supposed to be in alignment with the Most High to be beneficial. That's the thing. We're supposed to be in alignment. And so even if you have a vision for your household, you have a vision that he gave you to accomplish, and you're delegating and you're trying to be a good husbandman and a good manager of, like, how things work. If God is saying, all right, I need your wife to go do this for a season, however, whatever that ministry looks like, you can't just, like, nah, God, that's not going to work because I got a vision. This is the vision you gave me. God's going to be like, I know, I gave you that vision. I got another vision for her. Support her. Help her to do what she needs to do. Like, what? Anyway, it's just frustrating because we limit ourselves. Because I don't think we're really digging in to truth. We're not really digging into truth, and we're not really having the constructive conversations that we need to have as black men, and particularly as Christian black men. Like, we keep following the same traditions and cycles over and over and over again and not actually getting any better. And the sad part is, I think there are men who are having those kind of conversations and doing that work, but they aren't, like, the majority keeps pushing them out. The majority keeps pushing them out, and they don't want to listen to it because that means they have to deal with it. They have to deal with these problems. They have to, even if it's not their fault or it is their fault, they now have to deal with these problems. And, like, we can't keep just making excuses and going in these circles. Like, and we also can't keep thinking that, like, we're saying profound things when we're not. You're literally saying the same thing somebody else just said. Like, that's why you're not really going to get any pushback. And, all right, I wrote some stuff down. So, minimal communication. Okay, there was minimal communication expressed about standards of righteousness and goodness, or being beneficial. A lot of it was honestly coming from a selfish place that depended heavily on women, which sucks because it sounded like which sucks because it sounded like the majority or the major audience at this event was women. I'm assuming, and I'm sure that there are probably some men there, but, like, I wouldn't share if I had the option. Say I had the options, like, say a young man is in his teens or his 20s, was like, hey, could you share some YouTube content with me of what it means to be a man or masculinity or manhood, I wouldn't share this video. I wouldn't send them this video. I'm like, I think that's just the easy way to put it. I wouldn't want my son to watch this. Like, if I don't have any children. If I had a son, I wouldn't want my nephew to watch this. I wouldn't want any other little brothers in the community to watch this. Like, I don't think there's so much to sift through to try to find the gold nuggets that I wouldn't even say that it's worth it for them to watch it. There's so much other good content out there that can help them become better men. And yeah, you gotta like fish for it and look for it, but it exists. It exists. And so like I wouldn't share this with them. No, because like it's not setting a good standard for what a black man should be. And those who attempted to communicate a standard were very few, and their voices and their points, I don't think were as strong as they had hoped or would want them to be. Because like the thing is, like when you're in certain environments, as in this event, if you say something that kind of sounds good, especially if you're in a church, if you're like saying something that kind of sounds good and there are women there, oftentimes they're going to cheer. And it's almost like gassing you up and to make you think that what you're saying is even more, like it's landing even stronger. When in reality, it's like, it's probably not landing as hard as you think it's going to land. Or it's not as profound as you think it is. Because there were some good points that were made. But again, I think there were a few out of the grand scheme of how the conversation went. Oh, okay, I got more stuff. All right. It's frustrating to see this stuff and then have to deal with it. Because as a man, we're to address problems that aren't necessarily our fault, especially if it impacts our loved ones and our community. I said this earlier. It may not be your fault. It may not be my fault. It may not be our fault. It may not be your fault, but it is your problem. If you're a black man and you're in the black community, the thing is being presented to you. It's like, this is what's happening in the community. It's a problem. What are you going to do about it? And the thing is, running away from the problem isn't a beneficial fix. It doesn't fix it. And I think there are a lot of men who are okay with running away with it. And I mean, to some degree, I felt like that too. But I can't. Like, I can't. And the Most High keeps convicting me on it in various ways. They're like, you can't get away from this. Like, you got to deal with it. You have to talk about it. And whatever way you're supposed to talk about it. But you got to talk about it. You know, it's like, you got to talk about it, though. You got to address it. You got to fix it. And the fact that he keeps showing it to me over and over and over again, I will be disobedient if I don't. I will be disobedient if I don't address it, if I don't speak up about it, if I don't put energy towards it. And I'm not saying that, like, even with other men who are putting energy towards it, like, if everything goes to shit, if you did your part, if you showed up, if you spoke, if you tried, it's not your fault. But you have to try. We have to try. Like, even I think in the Old Testament it talks about that in regards to I want to say it was Ezekiel, I could be wrong, but the idea of like, if God is telling you to go say something, if somebody's doing wrong and you just sit there and you don't say anything, and God tells you and you're like convicted about it, it's like, you need to go say something, and you don't say anything, it's on your head. It's on your head at that point. But if you actually go and say something like, yo, however you want to say it, some people communicate things differently, but if you go and say and communicate with exactly what the Most High is convicting you to say, if you go and say it and you do your part, but they still choose to wild out and do whatever, it's on them. Because you got to show up and say something. And like, yes, it's the weight. It's heavy, but it comes with being a man. And like, I'm learning that each and every day. Like, it comes with being a man, and like, that's part of that masculinity. Like, I think, like, as a definition of masculinity, it is, we'll say, a male, because I think that really matters. So more manhood than anything, to what it means to be a man. Because masculinity and femininity are just descriptions of like the soul. The soul is one thing, and then you can have masculine and feminine parts, because we have both. There was a comment that was made inside of on the thing about like, do men have like feminine traits? And one guy was like, no. Like, no, we can't have any femininity. Like, what are you talking about? You're what is it? 13 or what is it? You're half man, half woman. That's what you come from. Like, your chromosomes are set up that you get half from your father and half of your mother. Like, so biologically you're both. You're not just only getting the masculine genes from her. Like, no, you're getting from your father and you're getting from your mother. So everybody, everyone, everywhere has masculine and feminine traits in them. There's a balance though in how you use them. Like, we have demonized women and we've demonized femininity so much that we're afraid of it. Like, no, you need both. Like, you talk about nurturing. Your children want to be nurtured by you. It's not only the mom's job. A father needs to nurture his children. Brothers need to help and comfort one another. If my best friend is sad, it would be ass backwards of me to be like, oh, yo, I'm sorry you're going through this. Well, suck it up. Get over it. Man up. No, I need to be able to go in and listen to my brother, comfort my brother, love my brother, support my brother, and be there for him. Be a space for him that he can vent to me. That same expectation that you're having for a woman to always be there to like lick your wounds and support you, I need to be able to do it with my brother too. Like, to help him out. Because what if he doesn't have a woman in his life? What if he is single? What if it is a young man and he doesn't have anybody there? And now he's just got to be stoic all the time. He's just got to be hard all the time. Like, he can't have space to be emotionally expressive because, oh no, we're just masculine. We don't, like, no. Like, stop doing this. Stop limiting who we are. Like, yes, God gave us masculinity and femininity, but manhood, being a man, the way I would describe it, and this is a work in progress, but the way I would define it, it would be a male who is submitting, a male who is submitting to the call and leading of the Most High for glory and for good, for the service of those around him. And that manifests in so many different ways. But you're sitting there and you're doing exactly what the Most High is telling you to do, not for your benefit, but to serve other people, to glorify the Most High, and to serve those around you. And very often, that's other brothers, but it's also women and children. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to serve. You're supposed to show up. You are supposed to deal with the problem. You're supposed to fight. You're supposed to provide. You're supposed to do all these things. You're supposed to listen. You're supposed to be kind. You're supposed to be supportive. You're supposed to be gracious. Like, all of these things. That's what a man is supposed to do. That's what manhood is. Like, I'm actually doing the work that I'm supposed to do. And doing the work is making sure that everyone is good, and I'm pointing to the Most High, and everyone is being glorified, and we're growing. We're benefiting. Adam's job was to help tend to the garden. You're supposed to do work, and you're supposed to advance things. I'm supposed to do work and advance things. I'm supposed to keep producing things and making more. I'm supposed to be leaving an impact and leaving a positive mark on people. I talked about that in another video, like leaving a mark to help people grow. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be blowing up stuff in a good way. I'm supposed to be helping things grow, like tending to things, make sure, is everything okay? Like, that's, as a man, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's my working understanding of that's a call of a man. And it doesn't necessarily have to look like I'm walking around with a six-pack and I don't have a shirt on. It doesn't have to mean focusing only about money or talking about sex all the time or talking about fitness. It doesn't have to be limited to that. It doesn't matter what sports you play. It doesn't matter what video games you play. It doesn't matter what kind of job you have. Like, are you walking in alignment with what the Most High has called and directed you to do? So if you're called to be a ballet dancer, you better go out and be the best ballet dancer you can be. You better bring life to that joint. And there are male ballet dancers. Walk in that. And part of that, like, as you're walking in that, because I'm sure there are people pushing back or whatever, but in that, again, as I believe and think, when I say for glory and for good, that means you're walking in righteousness to honor the Most High with whatever it is in your lifestyle. So you can be the best ballet dancer, but don't be out here getting drunk and doing dumb stuff. No, Follow the rules of righteousness. Be beneficial. Walk in godliness. Like, and bless those around you. And you bless people by moving in your purpose. So if you're called to be a ballet dancer, if you're called to be anything else, if you're being called to be a content creator, be the best damn content creator you can be, and do that stuff. Like, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating. And like, it sucks because there's so many problems that need to be addressed. And as men, we need to address them. And when we don't, they go unchecked and they get worse. Because it's our responsibility to actually go on. That's part of that innate thing of like, I want to fix things. Because you're supposed to be tending to stuff. You're supposed to be fixing stuff. But you also need to learn how to be comprehensive. You also need to learn, like, grow an emotional intelligence. You also need to become a well-rounded man so that you provide the services and needs to who needs them. Like, if you're a child or someone younger than you just needs you to listen to them and they just want you to be present and understanding, that's all they need. They don't, and that's the fix in that moment. The fix isn't always, oh, I have to go beat up somebody or I need to go do this. No, the fix for your wife is the fact that you just listen to her and you make space for her, or you have fun with her. That may be the fix in that moment. Sure, there are other times like, I need you to go out there and go make some money. I need you to do this. I do need you to fight somebody. Somebody needs to get punched in the face. I get that. You know, there's times and seasons for all of that. I need you to be more assertive right now. That's something that I have to work with. I have to be more assertive, you know, and whatever. But like, there are areas that we're all growing in. And yes, we have, as men, we have that desire to fix things and to make things better, to grow things, to improve stuff, to create things, to produce things, to leave a good mark or leave a mark where we are. But if you're being a good man, you're a male that is submitting to the Most High to live for glory and for good. I don't know. I feel like I gotta wrap this. This video is way too long. I'm at the bottom of these notes. In general, we just got to do better. I don't know. We just got to do better. And I say that to myself. Like, I know I have to do the work to keep showing up. Because again, like I told you, like, it just keeps gripping me. It keeps gripping me. Like I said in my last podcast episode, like, I have these highs and lows in regards of like my mental health and my emotional health when it comes to this topic about our community and about the state of Black men. There are very often times where I get really, really depressed about it. And, you know, it's a compound effect because I'm bothered with my own shortcomings, but then I'm also on top of that and supported by the shortcomings within my community of us, you know. But on the other side, after that dust settles, there's that grip that's like, you got to get to work. Like, you got to do something about it. Like, you can't sit there and complain about it. Like, yes, I'm going to pray. Absolutely, I'm going to pray. Yes, I'm going to do my best so I can show up the best that I need to in my circle of influence. But I'm also going to stretch out and do what the Most High wants me to do, however the best I can. And that's going to be challenging. Like, that's the thing. It's going to be challenging for you to be your best self. It's going to stretch you. We all know this. We all know there's so much personal development talk that talks about that. Like, your best self is on the other side of that pain, is on the other side of that stretching. It's just, if you want to be your stronger self, if you're lifting weights, you got to push that weight. Your muscles have to tear. Like, you have to get there. You have to climb over that. Like, the best you is through it. It's through it. It's conquering that, going through it. All of the discomfort and the frustration and the failures and whatever. Like, if you like, if you think of anything that's masculine and manly, we talk about, like, we like to see movies. I don't know, that may not be a thing anymore, but like, I'll say it for the anime geeks, right? For the blurs. Like, if you want to do that plus ultra, if you're trying to do that, you know, I'm talking about My Hero Academia. If you're trying to go plus ultra, Or even if you want to go Super Saiyan, you want to go to that, like, you have to push past. You have to go past whatever your comfort zone. You have to go past the gray mediocrity. You have to. And again, I'm saying that for myself too. And the thing is, it's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. It's so awkward. It's so challenging, but it's necessary. Like, for you to be your best self, for you to become the most beneficial man that you can be, and that I know you can be. Again, I'm saying this to myself and to you, like, and who the Most High is called, because there's so much planted inside of us by God for His glory and for the good of other people. But if we don't push past it, if we aren't seeds making our way to push past the dirt, to push past the things that are uncomfortable so that we can see the sun, like, if we don't do that, we no longer are beneficial and the seed dies. We have to break through. Like, we have to push past. And yeah, you just have to embrace the suck. I know sometimes people say that in regard, like, people who are in the military or whatever, it's like, there's a season you just got to embrace the suck. It's true. It's true. Unless you want to settle in mediocrity. Unless you want to run away from it, from the problems, and be mediocre. Because even if you run away, like, even if you're, for example, I've seen this a lot recently about the passport bros or whatever. Like, even if you're getting a passport and you're taking your wickedness and your degeneracy and your whoredom, because the scriptures talk about, there are whoremongers too. There are male there are male hoes. There are male whoremongers. And yes, in this current culture and society, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We want to talk about calling women bees and hoes and stuff like that. But you are a bee. You are a hoe. Dude, if you're going through and running through women and not treating them right and not providing for them and keeping them and stuff like that, if you are being reckless with what the Most High has given you, with your privilege and your power and all, even your seed, like, you're being a whoremonger. You're being a brute beast. You are being a burden. But we've normalized that. We've made that okay. We've tried to paint it. It's like, you get a picture and it's like, you know what? If I just turn it a little bit, oh yeah, it looks okay this way. But don't look at it straight on. But you turn it a little bit. Let the shadows come on a little bit. Like, we've done that and we've accepted that and we keep repeating it. And it's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of us. I really have to stop because this joint's almost an hour long. Like, it's a mixture of us accepting bad thoughts, bad beliefs, and turning them into bad behavior and action. And yeah, I also admit that there's an enemy here to tear us down. But just like in the garden, we're supposed to stand up to that. May not be my fault. May not be my fault that this bad idea or bad concept exists in this society, in our community. But it's my problem. I got to deal with it. I can't be okay with my children or with my brothers or with my sisters, with my wife or people in my community to keep listening to this message in any form. It doesn't only have to be hip hop. There's bad stuff taught in the educational system. There's bad stuff said in politics. There's bad stuff that's said in the church. It's true. But as men, we're supposed to stand up for that. We're supposed to, we talk about protecting and providing. How often are we protecting? How often we don't even have to talk about the community for a second. How often are you protecting your own soul from wickedness? How often are you protecting your own soul from destructive and evil things? Your own soul. I'm not even talking about somebody else. I'm not talking about women. I'm not talking about children. How often are you saying, like, oh, I shouldn't watch this. I shouldn't listen to this. This is not good. This is actually destructive to me in my community. And I get it. Sometimes we're not aware. But are we doing that work? Are we doing that work to be like, let me test this out. Is this really tracking? Let me look at the fruit of this. I'm a gardener. I'm a husbandman. I may not have my own personal garden. I have my own garden, though. I am a garden. right? Like, let me test. What fruit's coming out from this? What? That look like weeds. I need to cut that out. Nah, that's a vine. That's choking out some stuff over there. I need to cut that out. How often are we doing that for ourselves? Talking about protecting and providing and stuff. Are we giving ourselves good seed? Are we giving ourselves good fertilizer and good things? Like, all right, it's 45 minutes. The last, really, I mean, I think in general, again, like I said, I wouldn't share that. I wouldn't share that video with a young man. There's other content of like, yo, this is what it is to be a man. There's other fruitful content that discusses way more than money, sex, and fitness. And there is other good content that discusses money, sex, and fitness in a constructive way to help you be a beneficial man, to live for glory and for good. I just don't think this was it. I'd rather if I had children, if I had sons, I'd rather teach them so much righteousness and goodness that if they saw stuff like this, they would be like, this is stupid. This doesn't make any sense. Dad, this doesn't sound like the stuff that you say. This doesn't line up with what the Bible says. This doesn't sound like these are good men. This doesn't sound like beneficial. Like, there was one part in there, I think Anthony O'Neill, he asked a question to the panel or whatever, like, do all men cheat? And then like one of the follow-up questions is like, do good men cheat? I don't think anybody gave an affirmative answer, or even just a clear, direct answer. I don't think anybody said no. I don't think anybody said, no, not all men cheat. Or I don't think anybody said, no, good men don't cheat. All of it was just like amorphous and kind of like, oh, well, you know, this happens, and then this happens, and then if my wife is doing this, and then like even the scripture said, like, don't commit adultery. Like, why is this? Why is this not clear? So no, I would rather my son hear everything from me. And I'm gonna say this, like, I would rather introduce my son and help my son navigate, or even a younger brother navigate things, having discussions from people from the Nation of Islam, having discussions with people who may be considered outliers in Christianity, or people black men who may not even be considered believers or religious, but have good moral standards and good or doing things, whether they know it or not, for glory and for good. I'd rather have them be introduced to that kind of information than what was discussed on that panel. I would rather work through those things and help them navigate those things, and like introduce them to good quality good, constructive, and beneficial information, and do that work, rather than just like sit them in front of this and be like, yeah, this is what manhood is. This is what masculinity is. Because I don't think anybody watching that thing can come with a definite, like, just like a definite answer. Because even Themis, like, watching that, it's like, I haven't been given a definition. I don't know what, nobody's told me, you know. And like, again, my working definition, I would say, is a male that's submitted to the Most High, walking in his purpose, living for glory and for good. And again, there's nuance there, and that requires other men to help you do that. Like, you need other men to like show you, okay, these are the nuances. But again, it's a male who's submitted to a higher power, to the higher power, in my opinion, to the higher power, who's going to guide him in righteousness and truth, to live in a way that glorifies him and that is beneficial and good to other people. It has nothing to do with how much masculinity you have and how much femininity you have. No, you're just walking in the role that you were given. And that part of that role is protecting. Part of that role is providing. Part of that role is creating, making stuff, tending to things. Like, all of that's there. But all of that is lined up with you walking in righteousness, what he says and who you are. And that's in the scriptures. That comes with relationship with the Most High. That comes with relationship with other men. You know, like, I don't know. All right, this is 49. The last image that I wanted to say, and this was something that I was processing earlier, but again, like I said earlier, about there are a lot of problems And just because a problem's not your fault doesn't mean it's not your problem. So there are a lot of things that have happened, that are happening currently in our community, that as black men, it may not be your fault, but it is your problem. And we have to be, the image that came to mind is like being a plumber that is called to deal with a broken pipe. And I think about a broken pipe like a sewage pipe. Sometimes you gotta go deal with the shit so that you can fix the problem. You gotta deal with the mess. You gotta get down in there. You gotta smell it. Even if you put on gloves, you gotta come near it. You gotta touch it. You gotta deal with it. And it's not your fault. You didn't break that pipe, but that pipe is broken. And it needs to be fixed to help the whole building, to help the whole house or whatever. Like, I don't know. I do know. Work needs to be done. And it requires men to stand up and do that. And we gotta push through it. We really do have to do the work, and we have to become beneficial men and continue to grow and do our best to get rightly aligned with who the Most High is calling us to be. And he's calling us to be men that serve for glory and for good, that serve to point to the Most High and help other people see him so they can get in line with him, and to serve those that are in need in various capacities. Whether, again, like I said, if you need to comfort your brother, that's a need. If that means you need to go make some money over here, if you need to build a business, if you need to build a home, if you need to stand up and speak against foolishness, like, that's a need. It's for the good. It's for the good of others, not just your good, for the good of others. It's outward. Everything is outward. Like, you are a vessel to impact those around you. It can be a small circle, like your immediate family and your immediate friends, or it can be a bigger circle, but it's always out. We're tending and creating things and producing things for the benefit of others, that ultimately it points to the Most High so that he can be glorified. All right. Peace.